The Myth of the Missing Pipeline, Reimagining Black Leadership. Every day in America, we're losing future CEOs, not to retirement, not to career changes, but to a system that was never designed for their success in the first place. 300,000 black women gone from our workforce in a single year. The highest labor force participation rate among all women in America reversed. Not because they lacked ambition, not because they lacked talent, but because we failed them. This isn't just a diversity problem. This is an economic catastrophe hiding in plain sight. I recently had the privilege of interviewing Odeth Sol, whose revolutionary work has transformed how we understand leadership pipelines in America. Odeth isn't just a researcher or consultant. She's a visionary who has dedicated her life to dismantling the barriers that prevent black professionals from reaching their full potential. Her groundbreaking methodologies have helped dozens of Fortune 500 companies rebuild their talent strategies from the ground up, creating pathways where none existed before. What makes Odeth truly exceptional is her refusal to accept comfortable fictions about why inequity persists. Through Odeth's penetrating insights, I have come to understand that the common belief that the pipeline for black women and black professionals in leadership is naturally narrow due to lack of interest or qualification isn't just wrong. It's a dangerous myth that costs us innovation, growth, and our collective economic future. The truth? The pipeline isn't narrow. It's being systematically constricted. When I spoke with Odeth, three powerful insights emerged that fundamentally change how we must approach this crisis. First, the barriers facing black professionals are deeply structural, not individual. Second, targeted support creates exponential impact. And third, visibility directly fuels both succession planning and economic stability. Let's be brutally honest about something. We've been asking the wrong questions. For decades, organizations have asked, why aren't there more black leaders in our pipeline? When they should have been asking, what are we doing that's pushing them out? In 2025, nearly 300,000 black women exited the U.S. labor force, a dramatic reversal after decades as pillars of workforce participation. This wasn't a coincidence or a trend. It was the predictable result of persistent underinvestment in intersectional gender equity that led to thinning pipelines for future leaders. As Katika Roy, CEO of Pipeline, demonstrated through AI-driven analytics, this exodus represents a succession crisis with far-reaching consequences. Organizations that recognized this pattern and implemented Pipeline's targeted interventions saw measurable improvements in retention rates among diverse talent pools. But those who continued business as usual, they lost their future leadership. This isn't about charity or optics. This is about survival. The companies that will dominate the next decade aren't asking if they should invest in black leadership. They're asking how much and how quickly they can do it. Consider what happened in Michigan in July 2025. The state awarded $6.8 million across 23 organizations supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs, with several focused specifically on empowering black business owners. One recipient, Dunamis Charge, faced the persistent obstacles that plague so many black-owned businesses: limited access to capital and scarce networking opportunities. But with targeted grant funding, they implemented technical assistance programming and mentorship events like Black Tech Saturdays. The results? Dunamis Charge expanded nationally using Michigan-based supply chains while creating new jobs locally. Their EV charging solutions are now deployed nationwide, built by predominantly local workforces. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because Michigan recognized that talent and potential were abundant, but opportunity was not. They didn't just hope for change. They funded it, they built it, they measured it. And here's what's fascinating. When we invest in black leadership, we don't just change individual trajectories. We transform entire ecosystems. In August 2025, the U.S. Black Chambers convened its largest conference ever in Washington, D.C., bringing together thousands of chamber leaders and entrepreneurs focused on prosperity through peer learning and policy advocacy. For years, fragmentation across networks had made it difficult for individual businesses and chambers to scale impact beyond their immediate circles. But something remarkable happened when these leaders gathered. Peer-to-peer sessions fostered collaboration around shared challenges. Expert panels equipped attendees with actionable strategies. And most importantly, attendees left with expanded networks and concrete plans to drive equity from the inside out at local, state, and national levels. 16 years of building momentum culminated in an event designed specifically around addressing systemic obstacles faced uniquely by Black professionals and businesses. New partnerships formed between chambers and businesses, leading directly to policy changes and new funding streams after the conference. This set a national precedent for collective action and economic transformation driven by empowered Black leadership. But here's what keeps me up at night. What if we are still asking the wrong questions? What if instead of asking, how do we get more Black women into leadership, we asked, what are we losing by pushing them out? The answer is staggering. We're losing innovation. We're losing perspective. We're losing the very leaders who could help us navigate an increasingly complex global marketplace. We're losing our economic future. When I spoke with Odeth, one thing became crystal clear. This isn't just about doing what's right. It's about doing what's necessary for our collective prosperity. The data is unambiguous. Companies with diverse leadership outperform their peers. They innovate more effectively. They understand broader market segments. They adapt more quickly to change. Yet we continue to accept a narrative that the pipeline is naturally narrow, that there simply aren't enough qualified Black professionals seeking leadership roles. This is a lie we can no longer afford to tell ourselves. Black women have historically had the highest labor force participation rates among all groups of women in America. Their recent mass exit from the workforce doesn't represent a lack of ambition. It represents our collective failure to create systems where their ambition can thrive. So what happens if we change our perspective? If we recognize that narrowing pipelines are caused by systemic failures, not individual deficits, organizations would prioritize investing resources where they matter most: mentorships, grants, and policy reform. This would result in higher retention rates among talented professionals from marginalized backgrounds and create sustainable pathways toward leadership succession and inclusive prosperity across industries. But changing perspective isn't enough. We need action. Michigan didn't just recognize the problem, they invested $6.8 million in solving it. Pipeline didn't just identify gaps, they built AI-driven tools to close them. The U.S. Black Chambers didn't just talk about fragmentation, they created spaces where collaboration could flourish. The question isn't whether we can afford to make these investments. The question is whether we can afford not to. Every day that we accept the myth of the naturally narrow pipeline is another day we lose future leaders. Another day we compromise our economic potential. Another day we fail to build the world we claim to want. When I asked Odeth what one action everyone could take today, the answer was beautifully simple. Identify one concrete way you can invest directly, whether through sponsorships, grants, or network building, in supporting emerging Black leaders within your sphere this month. Small actions compound over time toward lasting change. This isn't about charity. This isn't about optics. This is about recognizing that our current systems are designed to constrict talent and then deliberately redesigning them to let talent flow. Imagine a world where we stopped asking Black professionals to overcome barriers and started removing those barriers instead. Imagine if we stopped talking about finding diverse candidates and started creating environments where diverse leaders could thrive. Imagine if we recognized that the pipeline isn't missing. It's being systematically dismantled. And then imagine what we could build together if we stopped accepting that as inevitable. The 300,000 Black women who left the workforce in 2025 didn't disappear. Their talent didn't vanish. Their potential didn't diminish. They simply stopped investing in systems that refused to invest in them. Can we blame them? I stand before you today not just as a speaker, but as someone forever changed by the wisdom Odeth has shared. Her work has shown me that when we dismantle barriers instead of asking people to overcome them, we don't just create opportunity for the marginalized. We unleash potential that benefits us all. So I challenge you right here, right now. to reject the comfortable fiction that the pipeline is naturally narrow. I challenge you to examine the systems you participate in and ask, what barriers am I helping to maintain? I challenge you to make one concrete commitment before you leave this room to invest in black leadership. Because this isn't just about who we include, it's about who we become. The pipeline for black leadership isn't naturally narrow. It's being artificially constricted by systems we built and systems we maintain, which means we have both the power and the responsibility to rebuild them. Not tomorrow, not next quarter, not when it's convenient or comfortable or cost-effective. Now, because every day we wait, we lose another leader, another innovator, another catalyst for change, and we can no longer afford that loss. The future of our economy, our innovation, our very society depends on our willingness to confront this truth. The talent has always been there. It's the opportunity that's been missing. What will you do today to change that?